All right, previous class we looked at how you can add and subtract from techniques. Now we're going to move into the modification process. And I want to break it down step by step, piece by piece. And as we give you the complete process, then we'll start to look at how all of these can work together. We did a little bit of that in the first class. We deleted some moves and then added others simultaneously. I mean, that's why it's just such a powerful thing and why the possibilities are practically limitless. You're not stuck following just one of these at a time. Very often you're going to be doing multiple pieces of the formula. Now, the modification process, modifying the sequence. What I mean by that is we're not adding to it, we're not taking away, but we're changing what's there, sometimes in subtle ways. First thing that we'll look at, we can alter, and we can alter the weapon that we're using, and we can alter the target. And of course, very often when you choose to use a different weapon, your weapons are designed to fit certain targets. So very often when you choose a different weapon, you have to change target as it is. Okay, let's look at speed bag. We're going to use this quite a bit. With Moses here, he's going to throw a roundhouse punch. The technique is written: block, back fist, thrust punch, back fist, thrust punch. Doesn't get simpler, doesn't get more basic than that. What if we adapt the technique so now it's block, cross shuto? And you could keep everything else the same. But notice what I did without even saying it was I altered the target, because a back fist works nice to the temple. A cross shuto works nice to the side of the neck. So that's a simple alteration. Now I could choose to do cross shuto. I could then drive in with a shuto, cross shuto, and shuto. We could change it to 4 shutos instead of back fists and thrust punches. We could choose to adapt the technique so that we're performing rakes to the face instead of using punches. Okay? We can also alter targets in a different way. We might change height. So we might keep back fist and then thrust punch comes in low. See, and that's very powerful, because now alternating heights with this technique, it makes it difficult for him to respond, because when I strike high, where's he move? He moves high. He's going to bring his guard to where the strike is. That's going to open up low. If we start low, then he's exposed higher targets, higher zones. Now, if we make that alteration, this is one of my favorite sequences actually. Block, back fist, thrust punch, because what happens? Once we alter target, this back fist becomes a strike that obscures my next blow. This is a distraction, okay? And there's this idea of major and minor moves, and as you start to make alterations, it's hard to look at individual pieces here, because I'm actually jumping into a piece we're going to talk about later on. We can regulate force and intent, okay? Now, I can regulate the force of this in the sense that, well, certain moves are major moves, certain moves are minor moves. Some moves are designed to set up other movements. And if I pick the right target, this is a back fist. What if we alter it to a shuto, and then we continue, we keep this a thrust punch, but we drop it down low? A shuto to the neck, you don't have to hit hard. And that's a very sensitive target. You can get the muscle to start to spasm. That could knock him out. So now I make this a minor move that obscures my blow, but it's a minor move in terms of regulating the force, not in terms of its effect. And it serves to not only cause great damage, but now I can bring more energy into this thrust punch, and it's obscured. Now I could jump back up, see? Because when I hit here, that might bring him down a little. I might catch him with a back fist here, and then I can jump back down. So you can alter the weapon, the target, or both. Very often both. All right, we can alter the weapon or target. Now there's something that oftentimes happens as a byproduct of that. The next piece. We can adjust, and we can adjust the angle of execution. We can also adjust the range, or both, of course. Okay, so let's, again, we're going to continue to delve into speed bag. Let's have Moses back out here, please. Let's look at one of the first alterations I said you could make. If he throws his roundhouse punch, I block, and I told you that you could do a chop. You can do a shuto, okay? Now, a shuto to the neck, I'm just going to have you be a standing target right now. Horizontal is fine, but you can cut the shuto in and cause more damage. It can have a little greater effect, so you might adjust the angle of delivery. How about if we continue to alter it, so we have our back fist, we might alter back fist thrust punch. If we alter the target, the next thrust punch to the solar plexus. Now I'm also going to delete my back fist as we did earlier in class. So we have now 1, 2. So if we delete the next back fist and we have our strike to the solar plexus, I might alter the weapon. Instead of a thrust punch, I make it a back punch. And instead of more of a linear blow, I can make it an uppercut. I can make it cut in. So now you have 1, 2, 3. A very fundamental technique in Kempo, by the way. Again, if we alter this a little more, we can have a shuto here. We can have an eye poke instead of a thrust punch. We can have a low punch here and then a chop to the throat. Or you can keep it punches. See, you can do what you want. That's the power of this. This is a very basic technique, a very simple technique. When you learn it, it's all one level. Once you delve into it, you see it's not so basic. It has the pieces that are a part of many of your advanced techniques. And this is the basis. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Show you again what I did. What if I alter, this stays my back fist, this might become a low strike. Now from here, 1, 2, I might do an uppercut followed by a chop so that we have this. And note I pulled that a little farther away because I know he was going to come forward from this. He'd be coming right into that. Okay? So try that one. I think that's an important pattern to learn. It's actually an advanced combination that some of you have. 1, 2, 3. And you can insert a shuto at the end of there if you want as well. Okay? That's a nice one. Try it. Yeah. So there's more to this. Just gave you a couple things to work on. Let's look at, I'll change sides with you actually. Okay? He throws a roundhouse punch. 1, 2, 3. Technique that we know, right? There's certain patterns. Look at movements as patterns and understand how to adapt them and modify them as such. This hammer is nothing more. Throw the roundhouse punch that we have in speed bag. This inward block, number 3 block, when you expand it, when you adjust the range, you get a different movement. Okay? So if I expand what is typically a defensive movement, I get an offensive movement. And if I contract, if I adjust the range and bring it back a little, I get defense. Okay? So expand, offense. Contract, defense. And we can do that with our technique we were just looking at. And at the same time, why not, let's go back and we'll alter movement. So instead of an inward block, let's expand this circle. I'm going to make it a ridge hand strike though, that's going to come across the circle. So we're going to expand. If he's grabbing, we're going to turn back this way. If he's grabbing a hold of me from here, and I'm going to insert a pin at the same time, I'm going to check the arms. This hand is going to expand and strike to the temple and come straight across and deflect the arms. So now we have 1, 2, we have a kick at the end of speed bag. We can throw a kick, I might alter target, and we arrive at another technique that at least my students have. Come in and grab again. So this is just adjusting the range and making alterations. Speed bag is a powerful technique. I'm going to insert. This becomes a strike because I've expanded it. Could I keep it like this and try to snap the arm maybe and inflict pain? That hurts. Right? So I can come across here, deflect the arm, chop. Here I might kick out the back knee, kick to the groin. You can keep it as a ridge hand as I showed you first and strike and deflect, chop, kick. And there's another application of adjusting. Okay, before we move on to the next piece, let's take a step back and look at the relationship between two of the combinations. We were exploring prefixing earlier. If he throws a roundhouse punch and now another round punch, I can bounce back and forth, right? I might start with shielding hammer, I might then segue into another technique. And that's fine, that's prefixing. Now, if instead he throws the punch, now I'm essentially, if I'm quick enough, start throwing it slow motion, if I catch him here and I come across, my defense and my offense become one. If I'm not quick enough, I adjust my range, I shorten my circle, and that doesn't mean I have to switch to a different pattern. I can continue around. See, we're just traveling right around the circle, and then we cut through with a driving elbow to the solar plexus. So we've taken the same technique. We've looked at it two different ways. One, he throws the first punch, I block. He throws the second punch, I block, and then I move in, and we have a prefix to two combination. The other alternative is he throws the first block, and you could still say this is two combination. I'm just deleting a move. See, that's the point. It seems like this is analysis paralysis, but the point is the connections and the relationships between the techniques. There's only so many patterns. It's understanding the versatility with which you can use and apply those patterns, and establishing greater strength of connections between the relationships that exist with the lessons that you're learning. That's why we're dissecting the techniques so thoroughly. You spend years learning 100 techniques. I know I did. For black belt, 156 techniques we had. We have less for you guys, but years learning those techniques. It wasn't until maybe 8 or 9 years into training that I started to understand that there's lessons within those techniques. You know, we sparred, we trained, we did bag work. We were good instruction. But I missed a very important idea, this idea of pulling the principles and the lessons out of the techniques. Once I started to do that and study teachings of other masters and grandmasters, and I discovered all the lessons and relationships between the techniques, you spend the first part learning all these hundreds of techniques. Then suddenly you realize there's not really hundreds of techniques. There's just a few key techniques that keep appearing again and again. And you learn how to apply them in a multitude of ways. And that's what we're doing now. So we have two ways you can look at this again. One, I try to strike. Well, if I sense I'm not going to get there first, I cut across the circle. I adjust my range. This becomes a block. I can bounce back and move into essentially speed bag or two combination. Okay, you have many options, many connections exist between your techniques, between the patterns that you've learned. He throws the punch. I can block, I can come across, and I can move in close and then finish with shielding hammer. All right, pretty cool. Try that, and then we're going to move on, and we're going to discuss how you can regulate your techniques. All right, next piece. We're almost there. And I hope as we're going through this, you're appreciating the depth with which you can take the analysis of each of these. I'm just getting you started. You have to look at it and take it the rest of the way. Regulating. You can regulate a few things. You can regulate the force of your movements. You can regulate the speed of your movements. Of course, you can regulate the force and the speed. And as you start to play around with the force and the speed, majors become minors, minor moves become major moves, and you're also, in effect, regulating the intent of the movement. And you can also regulate the timing. Now, timing can in addition, timing can be tied into the next piece I'm going to give you, the last piece. We're almost there. Just hang on a little bit more. We're almost there. But timing is something we will look at and explore now. You could tie it onto either piece, and I'll explain more. You'll see what I mean when we discuss the last piece. So, again, let's go back to speed bag yet again. We'll stay at this side. If he throws his punch and I block and we start altering things so that now, I've already talked with you about this, I'm just recovering some old ideas here. If we make this a shuto, it may become a minor move in terms of my delivery of force and energy so that I can bring more energy into this movement. I mean, it's like doing a two-finger poke to the eyes. I don't exactly have to bring that much energy. It might be a major move in terms of its effect and importance, but some moves are minor moves in terms of the effort and the energy you need to put into the movement, because you only have so much energy. In a fight, you're going to get tired really quickly, and if you put all your energy into one move, that may be your undoing. Now, a lot of people believe in the sort of the one-hit kill method, and we train a lot of power development through White Crane. But if you put all your energy into one move, you've heard the saying, all your eggs in one basket. I recommend understanding how majors and minors work together and how different targets. You throw a snap kick to the groin, you don't need to put all your energy into that. The target alone has an incredible effect. Okay, poking somebody in the eyes, and a shuto to the neck, same thing. You know, you're going to need more energy than a poke to the eyes, that's for sure, but you're not going to need as much energy. Now I can bring more energy here. Now this move has been amplified. Why? Because it's obscured by my first move. Okay, so we're regulating the force. We might regulate the speed. Let me show you what I mean by that. On guard again, please. This time switch feet, because now I'm going to turn a technique that we've been looking at from defense. We're going to turn it into offense. Another idea, take that. Look at your techniques, look at the strategies, and see how you can adapt your combinations, your self-defense techniques, from a defensive model to an offensive one. Let's delete a move. We're going to delete the block. What comes next? Back fist. Now the intent when he threw his punch of this back fist is to inflict injury. He's on guard. I throw my back fist. The intent is to draw a reaction. If he throws a punch, throw a fast punch and pull it back. If he's punching really quick, I might not be able to trap. But if I throw a strike, I'm attacking. And notice also, just to point out how your strikes, throw that punch again, can serve as checks and as insurance. I just want to point that out because that was a coincidence, not planned obviously. And we were talking about earlier in this combination how this strike can serve as a defense for that weapon. It's just a natural guard that you're establishing. But anyway, I'm the aggressor. My back fist is drawing a reaction. He throws a punch and I try to trap him and he goes quick. I might not be able to. It's hard. But if I attack and I draw a reaction, he's giving it to me. So my speed, if I go too quick, now I also know that he's covered here, but he's still instinctively, you strike like that, instinctively he's going to respond. If he didn't have that zone open and I wanted to create a reaction, if I go too quick, it might not work. Of course, then again, I have a target that can be very lethal that I can hit. But the idea, I can regulate my speed because I want him to be able to respond to it. I want him to give me that hand, and then I can trap and pull down. And notice what that does. It's checking and controlling his height, his weight distribution, his stance. His base was altered. Okay, made it very difficult for him to throw a kick. I'm pulling this shoulder towards me. That's breaking his height. It's controlling his depth and negating his ability to use that other hand for just a moment in time. I can't stand here forever. You saw the reaction when I first did it. He wasn't expecting it. If we're here, now throw your punch. He's going to pull back. He's got me. But in that instant, he very likely wasn't going to be using that other hand. Again, I'm going to do it a little slower, just so you're aware. I'm going to strike, and I'm going to pull down, and now I can punch here. Okay, so we're exposing a target. We're regulating our intent. The intent is not to hit. The intent is to draw a reaction. I may need to regulate my speed as a result. You go too quick in certain things, you might not get the reaction you want. And we have a beautiful offensive technique. Now from here, if I want to follow up, instead of doing a back fist, why don't we delete the back fist? Why don't I come in with my next thrust punch? Let's alter the weapon. Let's make it a back punch. But this hand is here at this point. I'm kind of to the outside of the hand, okay? So let's insert a check. And if we alter it to a back punch, what have we just done? We've established a relationship between speed bag turned into an offensive model in 3 combination. On guard, 1, okay, I get that reaction, 1, 2. 1, 2. Now, if he doesn't move, if he doesn't respond, I can just take that hand. 1, 2. Okay? Work on that. That's a great little strategy for sparring. Okay, we're almost there. One more piece, and that's related to this timing piece that I didn't discuss yet. You can just tie that in there if you'd like, but it's something that should be addressed. Sometimes you might not think of it if it's not pointed out. The last piece, we can rearrange things. We can change the order of the movements. If I give you a sequence, 1, 2, 3, 4, you can change the order. You can do 3, 2, 1, 4. You can mix it up, okay? That's an important piece. And now that you have that, you have all 8 pieces to the formula. Okay, that's it. That's the complete picture. This is pretty straightforward. In fact, I stumbled into it earlier. We looked at speed bag, and we rearranged it, or rather we altered it in various ways, and we adjusted things. So instead of our back fist, thrust punch, we changed it up. It became cross shuto, punch low, and then a uppercut. And I told you you could insert a shuto at the end. It's not really an insert. It's a rearrangement. The shuto was there. There was a second back fist. We altered it to a shuto, and then we rearranged it. That's all. So the sequence, instead of this, let's just look at it with punches. 1, okay, we block, back fist, thrust punch, back fist, thrust punch. Let's alter targets. Block, back fist, thrust punch, back fist, thrust punch. Let's rearrange the last 2 moves. So instead of back fist, thrust punch, we make it thrust punch, back fist. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and you could choose to make this a shuto, and then you have a very powerful combination. Block, and there you go. That's just rearrangement and alterations. Now the timing, what I mean by timing is when you have movements like this, when you have 1, 2 combination, 3, 4, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, you could consider this rearranging. The order's changing. It's the timing. Instead of 1, 2, it can become 1, so that we have 1, 2. And there's our new technique. So be aware of that. Play around with the timing of your movements. There's several combinations you learn that the movements that are done 1, 2 could just be 1 beat instead. All right, that's the last piece of the process. Okay, that's where I'm going to leave you with this. You have the complete picture. Go to work on it, and let me know if you have any questions.